SDN Tech Forum. This is part 4 of SD Access video series. So far, we have installed our DNA center, we have upgraded the ICE and paired the DNA and ICE together. Now, in this video, we are going to learn about network hierarchy and design within DNA center. This is the topology what we are trying to build as a part of SD Access. You can see we have one border and control router, two fabric edge router, and couple of shared service infrastructure, which is comprised of DNA center, IPAM, and ICE. So let's go to the agenda. When you go to DNA center design network hierarchy, you'll be presented with a one global hierarchy. Under that, you have multiple level or multiple segments available, like area, building, floors, and also you can import or export your existing hierarchy. If you click on device setting, it will cross launch you to the network setting, design network setting. But let's go back to network hierarchy first, because our first goal is to create a site hierarchy here. So the top level of hierarchy is an area. Think of this as an AWS region. So you may have, if you're a MNC or you're a multinational organization, you may have different regions like AMER, APJC, US. So all those classify as area. Within area, you are going to create your, you will have your headquarters and branches that will be classified as buildings. So we are creating site, and these are the site hierarchy. So first we will add area. Under area, we are going to create buildings. Under building, you will have floors, right? And you will see this comes handy when you start discovering your device, because notion of site is very important. Right now, what you see on my screen as you're creating area and building, the map behind that. This map is not a passive map, but actually when you create your building, and you have to mention the address or the geo coordinate, which is latitude and longitude. Once you provide that, you will see that the site will be created on the on the map at the right place. So this is not just an illustration of map, but it is a real map behind that. Okay, so I'm going to, for our lab purposes, we are going to create two sites, east and west, both in US, and then we will have two buildings, or a couple of buildings called East 01, West 01, and under that we'll be creating the floors, right? So you can see, if you are an existing DNA spaces or CMX customer, you can sync. That means you can have a certain level of integration and you don't have to create all these things by hand. But for demo purposes, we are going to create it manually. Now you can see under my building East 01, I'm going to create a floor. I'll give it a name, floor 1. It will ask you to choose what kind of RF model. So I'm going to say cubes and walls, and floor type is going to be like a medium floor. You can drag and drop or upload the floor image, and the floor image comes handy when we deal with wireless. So once you start dealing with wireless, you can place the APs on the map, and then it will create a heat map for you. It will generate a heat map for you, and can demonstrate what kind of like RF utilization and RF interference you are experiencing on that floor. All right, but we will talk about that more into wireless section. For now, let's just create a site, building, add floor, and put the floor map on it. And again, would like to touch base why this site activity or this site creation is important, because so many concepts within DNA Center or SD Access, they are tied up with the site. Like you can have your role-based access policies tied to a site. You can have your different kind of servers, AAA servers, NTP server, DHCP server tied to a site, and also the fabric configuration, they are tied to a site. So it's very important. you do it, you get it right. And this is just one time job, but it need a good amount of planning. So for our lab purposes, again, as I mentioned, we are going to create two sites, east and west, and create a couple of buildings under it. Here I'm trying to find the geo coordinate for New York so that I can use the actual values. But you don't have to know the coordinate. You can live with the IP, actual street address as well. So creating site need a little bit of planning. Make sure you plan it in advance. You do a little bit look at your housekeeping or how your network is built today, and then you can recreate it in on DNS Center. Okay, and when you just copy and paste it, you say add. Creating site in progress, site added successfully. As soon as site is created, it is expandable. You can click on this three dots and then create further hierarchy under it. So now I'm going to create a floor. So once you click on global, you can see I have east and west showing up on my map as required. If you want to edit, you can edit also just by clicking those three dots, and it will give you more options. You can add, edit, delete, all those things you can do. Now, uh, we are going to go to the design and network setting. Here in network setting, you can see all these network settings, they are tied to the hierarchy itself. That means you can define your DHCP server, DNS server, or you can add more servers like AAA server, NTP server, or image distribution server. But they all are tied to the hierarchy level, and the global, whatever you define on the global level, they will be inherited by the children under it. All right. Moving on to the next tab, which is device credentials. Here you can see there are a couple of credentials which you need to manage, like CLI credentials, which DNAC will use to SSH to the box. Then you have SNMP v2 read write, SNMP v3, and HTTPS read and write. SNMP v2 and SNMP v3, they will be used for SNMP level discovery, and HTTP will be used if you are using any app hosting. So we'll not use it today, but that's the purpose. Now, as you can see, I created my first CLI credentials. I can edit, delete, or apply. Once you hit apply, that means it is this setting is applied to the site, and I applied it on a global level. That means it will be inherited by the region USA and the building east and west. Now let's define SNMP credentials. Read write. So you give it a name and then describe, mention your community. It's better to do SNMP v3 because that gives you authentication and encryption. But for demo purposes, we'll keep it simple and we will use SNMP v2c. Within that, you have to create read community and write community. Public and private is a default. I would advise you to create something different. So here, just for some fun, we are using Tom and Jerry, but it can be anything what is meaningful in your network. I'm just keeping this lab of a little bit of fun. All right, once you define, you can say assign credential to the site global, because all my uh, hierarchy or other site, they are going to inherit this setting. What happened with SNMP discovery is DNAC tried to discover them using this community, and if DNAC realize that the community is not defined, it is going to push this configuration to the device by SSH during device discovery, and you will see that in action. All right. So I have my credentials created. Three set of credentials, or basically two set of credentials, CLI and SNMP. I'm showing you what goes under HTTPS. And here you can see you can define username and password and the port number, which is 443. So DNA Center will use this username password to reach out to that network element on port 443. Now, very important thing is IP address pool. So you need to define IP address pool for your network configuration, whether it's a underlay configuration or overlay configuration. And there are two way you can do that, or three way you can do that. First, if you have a IPAM within your network, like Bluecat or Infoblocks, you can integrate that with DNA Center by using server name, URL, username, password, etc. So there will be a handshake, and DNA will try to sync and get those IP address pool from IPAM to DNA Center. Otherwise, what you can do import from CSV file. So you use a CSV file, you can download a template, populate this template, and then import it back to DNA Center, so that the IP address pool creation is quicker and it's not time consuming. How, and this is the template looks like. So you can see what goes inside the template. You define your IP pool CIDR or subnet, you define your gateway, any services associated to that like DHCP service, DNS service. So you need to define the IP address, but the CIDR and the gateway is the important part. So we are not going to import any CSV. The template is just for your illustration. We are going to create IP address pool manually, and this is what you are going to do. From global, I'm going to add an IP address pool, and at global level, I'm just creating a big IP address block. I'm not going to define any IP gateway or other services. It's just a big block I'm creating. You can select either IPv4 or IPv6, whatever kind of IP addressing you have in your network. I'm going to select IPv4 and create a subnet. Once you choose your subnet, you can choose prefix length, which is subnet mask. So I'm going to create a big subnet, say /18. So this is global overlay, and we will talk about different kind of like IP address pool requirement um, at the end of this task. But for now, let's go ahead and create this. So we have global overlay of subnet 172.16, which is a private subnet for lab purposes. Then we will define another global pool, global underlay. Type, you can see generic or tunnel. So we are going to keep it generic. We are not going to use it for any tunnel building purposes. So let's keep it generic. And now this time for global underlay, I'm choosing an IP address, IPv4 address pool of 192.168 with prefix length /19. So you see on global level, you are seeing this add facility. And every time I want to add an IP address pool or create an IP address pool, I'm going to hit add. So let's create one more for loopbacks, because we want to keep the fabric loopbacks a little bit unique or restricted to one particular subnet for easy identification. And we don't need too many loopbacks, so I'm going to create a smaller subnet /24. Okay, so IP address pool, large subnets or block of subnets are created at global level. Now we need finer or smaller subnet per site, which is east and west. So now what we will do, we'll go to the site, individual site. As you can see, it's inherited settings. And here you can define your IP address pool, but you will realize that there is no add option. However, you have reserve option. So what that mean is you can reserve a section of IP addresses created at parent level. So that's what we are going to do. We will reserve a smaller subnet from global subnet. IP address pool name, this is a mandatory field. So provide a name which is self-explanatory, or whatever nomenclature you have for a device naming and IP addressing, use that. For me, IPP the underscore UL, that is IP address pool underlay. This kind of convention works. So I'm going to create that. And we'll reserve a few subnets, and we will talk about that. Now, as you can see, when I hit reserve, all the global pool, they are available as a part of drop down. So I can choose from what subnet I want to reserve. I want to reserve from global underlay, and what is the prefix size. So prefix size should be 24. That's what I want. Now, during reserve, I want to define a gateway and the specific subnet, because the global subnet was very big, and out of that 192.168.0.0/19, I want to use the first subnet, which is, or one subnet, which is 192.168.19.0, and provide a gateway IP address of that. So we created our first uh, or reserve our first subnet out of the global subnet, and then we will continue doing the same. Each IP address pool has their own significance. Some will be used for micro segmentations, some will be used for underlay, and some will be used for PNP or LAN automation purposes. This is the IP address pool for access points. So all our access points within a site, they'll have a dedicated IP address subnet. So again, from the global underlay, I'm carving out a subnet 192.168.68.0/24, getting some error. So it's basically the specific subnet I chose is not part of global underlay. So you need to make sure that when you start planning, you know your range, and based on the range, you pick up the specific subnet. So let me go back and fix this error. And as I mentioned, we will not waste time typing it by hand. So I'm going to pause the video and create the subnets in the background. Now I'll show you what goes in the IP address pool for East 01, which is the first site we are going to build. Right, this is my all my global subnet. You saw me creating this one overlay, two underlay, and one fabric loop back. Now let's go to the site East 01. Under East 01, you can see I have created a few /24 subnet, and as I mentioned, they all have some purposes. Some are like micro segmentation. That means one SGT group or one type of group will get one IP addresses from one subnet. However, some are used for border automation, some are used for LAN automation, and we will talk about all these concepts as we go forward in the bootcamp series. All right, let's move on to the next topic. Image repo, image management area allow user to roll out new device image. So we have done image and swim upgrade multiple times. I have a couple of videos available on my website, but since image repo is a part of network design, let's go and check it out one more time. So when you go to Cisco DNA Center Hamburger menu and network design, you will have image repo section. When you come here first time, you will see this tour, and I'm going to click on walk you through the entire tour. You can pause the video and watch it. So basically it's telling you that what are the different fields available, and what is their significance, like advisory. So it DNA Center shows you if there is any active advisory or vulnerability available with that particular release. It will show up here. You need to also put your Cisco credentials so that DNA Center can go to software.cisco.com and fetch releases if required. And if you decide to upgrade your devices, you can check the progress by task, right? and finally you can do the update of device. All right. How you can import the image within DNA Center? There are two ways. Either you can put the URL and DNA Center can go and fetch that image, or you can upload it from your computer, and that's what we are going to do here. As you can see, I did a drag and drop of 17603, and it started uploading. uh, it will take some time, so you can just leave the screen like this and come back. As what I did, I paused the video, and now it is up to 99%, and it will finish uploading pretty soon. So there are two ways: either you will specify the URL, or you can upload from local machine. Mind it, once upload is complete for 100%, image will not show up immediately. So to make sure that image is available, what you can do, you can go to show task and look at the task status, right? So image upload was complete, but it is still processing. So it will show up a little bit after within DNA Center, so that you can go ahead and start using that image by marking it golden or go. Yeah. So as you can see, 1763 is now available. It is verified. This is the image I uploaded from my machine. There are two fields. You can either mark it as a golden, and you can associate a device role. Once you decide to mark it golden, this is the impact, or this is the notification you will be presented, so that you know what is the effect of marking it at golden. And then you can say device role. Do you want to use this device, use this image across all device, or you want to restrict it to certain device family or certain device role? That you can control by using device role and tags. If you click on role all, you can see these are the few roles, like border router, access router, unknown, distribution. So either you can mark an image golden for one particular role, or you can say role all. I'm going to say role all. Other way, what you can do, how you can restrict, you can actually pick up a device family, say 9300 or 9800, and then based on that you can mark your device image golden. All right. Once you mark your image golden, what happened? DNA Center know that this is the image you preferred for your network element, and based on the role, and it will prompt you to upgrade. And by the time you don't upgrade, it says outdated. So it is running a pre upgrade check, like checking the flash memory and all those things, and say that this device needs an update. If you want to update, you can just click on need update and update the device. Now let's move on to the next very important thing, network profile. This is again part of network design. So the network profile and template, they come together and let you allow some custom configuration on your network devices. So if you go to template, tool, editor, tool template editor, you will see these are some predefined template which comes pre-packaged from within DNA Center, like DMVPN or IPv6, IPsec tunneling. So these are like a predefined template. The template comes into two languages, Jinja and Velocity. Initially, it was only Velocity, but now it comes in Jinja format also. Some prefer Velocity, some prefer Jinja. It's up to you. So these are some predefined template I'm showing you based on both languages, Jinja and Velocity. It's a nice quick start. Some samples, because you may have a requirement that you want to write a for loop or if condition template, so you can refer from here. So what we would do, we'll define a very simple template, but to define template, before that, what you need a project, because your template will be nested to a project, and then this complete project will be nested to network profile, and network profile is something which get associated or applied on a site. So if you are interested in network profile and template editor, I have a link in my show notes or description. You can go and watch that video. That is one dedicated video to understand or help you understand all the different object of template editor. So here what we are doing, we created a project. Now we'll create a new template. I want a template of regular type with template velocity, template language velocity. So these are the two sections. I'm going to select, then give it a name and associate the template to the project, which it is already associated here. All right. What you can do, you can, if you want, you can associate tag to this template, or there are two mandatory fields. What you have to choose is device type and software type. So this template will be applied to what device type? 9300, 9800 ISRs. You can restrict or apply the specific device type here. I'm going to say, let's make it available for 9500, all type of 9500, because the border router or the fusion router is something which we are going to discover very first. We can quickly verify that. Software type, you can select your software type. I'm going to select iOS XE, because that's the software we are running. And here is the clean slate. So you have a project, you have a template where format declared that you want a velocity template, the devices inside it, etc. Now you can write the actual uh, code, or a configuration, whatever you want to apply. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just write one simple one line message of the day banner, so that when we provision device, this additional line of configuration show up in the device, because DNS Center is going to apply that and as a part of provisioning. So banner message of the day, welcome to the SDN Tech Forum SDL Lab. Okay, here you can do a couple of things. You can check the properties, and then in action you have to do a save and commit. You can also clone a template, existing template, and make changes. Every time you make a commit, you need to put a commit note, so it's actually versioning your template. Successfully committed template, that means now this template is available to be tied to network profiler. So under network profiler, again, if you want to add a template, you have to create first a profile for network profile, and you have to specify what kind of network profile you want. So I want to apply this template to all my switches, hence I chose switching. And then profile name, profile type is by default already mentioned. Now you have two types: onboarding template, which is day zero template, and the day end template. Day zero template is used for any kind of like a PNP work. When the device first reach out, it can get a base configuration from DNS Center. However, we are going to create a day end template. That means when device is up and running, if we want to add some additional configuration. So that's the DN template. That's what we are going to define. You can see I have one template available from the project. So I chose the template which we recently created in an earlier page, MOTD, and you simply say save. So you created your template, then you created your network profile, you bring this template under network profile, and finally this is your network profile, and you can assign it to a site. So click on assign site. Either you can assign it to the global, or you can go granular, as granular as like floor or site level, building level. So I'm going to assign it to site East 01. You can click on assign site, and as you can see, it is assigned to East 01 and floor 1 under that, because it's a rule of inheritance, right? So as you can see, we have touch base upon network hierarchy, network setting, image repo, and network profiler. Now the very last thing what we are going to look at, okay, before we go to that, the profile will be, this is the high level summary of network profile, and this is the final piece. Auth template. Authorization templates are used to customize how endpoints are authenticated as they join the network. Modification of the template is available, and these templates are IBN 2.0 template. And we will do a dedicated video when we where we do the comparison of legacy CLI versus IBM 1.0 versus 1.2.0. But here is the authentication methods available: closed authentication, low impact, and open authentication. And once you click on that, you can see what what are the under the hood things going on. So you can say closed authentication will do .802.1x, and then map authentication, Mac auth bypass as a fallback. You can select the critical VLAN and other things. And low impact is something like where you have certain services open before authentication. Like you can allow some DHCP and DNS services before port authenticate. And then open authentication, as it mentioned, there is no authentication, it's so open. So there won't be any verification when you user connect to the network. Many enterprises, they start with the low impact mode, and then graduate themselves to close authentication. We will do a very thorough video about these things, and take a deep dive into CLI and the template, the by default or a predefined template, and how to read the CLI, etc. So this is what I wanted to show you, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.